Are you a sports nut? If you are and you always wanted to use that to go into sports, this week is the great interview. I have Maya Tucker, family friend, former student who has gotten into sports as a young kid, loves baseball, and now is working for Marquee Sports, aka the Cubs. So watch this video, learn how she did it, and she tells some great stories. All right, let's go to the show.
Welcome to the First and 20 podcast, the podcast for college students trying to get into sports by talking to those in it. Here's your host, Steve Rockel.
Hey, welcome everybody back to the First and 20 podcast. I'm your host, Professor Steve Rockel, and today I have somebody I have known forever. Grew up down the street from us, know our kids, and she currently works with the Marquee Sports Network. So Maya Tucker, welcome to the show.
Hi, Steve. Yeah, great to see you. Great to catch up after all these years.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great, like, still in touch with the parents, still that neighborhood near and dear to our hearts because everybody was young with young kids and we all did happy hour together and all, ran around. So the other part is that Maya actually went to the University of Illinois and took my sports PR class. And so that is something that I'm proud of and that she kind of launched into her career pretty much after that, right? So let me turn it over to you. Let me find out or tell us a little bit about, you can talk about college. Let's start at college and tell us what you've been doing.
Totally, yeah. So in college, I was a communications major and I got a minor in PR. So that was my path to get to where I was at this point major-wise. But when I was in college, my main point of focus was to get involved. So right when I got to school freshman year, I reached out to Brett Moore, who was the baseball SID at the time, and asked if I could help out in any way on their social platforms, which was how I got involved with the athletic department. And then everything kind of went from there. So, and then obviously taking Steve's sports PR class was one of the best and maybe the best class that I took at school.
Well,
and
thank you. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, sorry. And then after college, right after I graduated, I joined the Kane County Cougars and I was their social media manager for that summer. And then after that, with some of the connections that I had at the Kane County Cougars, I was able to get my job here at Marquee Sports Network. It started as just a seasonal coordinator role where I just helped out with social media. It was an hourly role and I didn't have any guarantees for something afterwards, but luckily, because I did a good job and made good connections here, I was able to secure a full-time role and then move up a little bit. Yeah, everything's been great. Spring training started. Pitchers and catchers reported yesterday and everything's going well.
And as long as I've known you and your parents, I think it starts with your dad. Your dad is a big Yankees fan, right? And that kind of passed down to you. And I just remember like, what's she wearing the Yankees cap? Like, and then we're okay, I get it. Is that when you felt like sports was the thing that you wanted to do? Is that kind of the origins or what?
Yeah, I would say my fandom, being a Yankees fan growing up, was definitely what propelled me to wanting to get into the sports industry because I'm not just a fan, I'm a fanatic. I'm totally into it and I'm diehard and I love every single aspect of it. And so the best way to enjoy your job in some sense is to do something that you love. So I think growing up in that fandom, seeing the Yankees fandom while also getting to witness the Cubs 2016, seeing all of that development, the parade, the excitement around it, it was really cool and then helped me transition into my role here for sure.
When you came to Illinois, you immediately jumped in doing social media for the baseball team, correct?
Yes. And so I started just doing smaller level things like Instagram stories during the game. And then it developed into running their Twitter page during games and doing more of the SID side type of stuff. But yeah, I would say one of my biggest pieces of advice is to really get involved and to try to get that experience while you're still in school, because what companies are looking for is that experience. Sometimes the things you learn in class are always incredible and great, but what really drives your job is the experience you get. And so I felt like working in the athletic department for 4 years, being in different sports, working with Olympic sports, with the football team, basketball team, all men's and women's. It gave me like a really well versed idea of what the social media world looked like in sports, and getting to do it firsthand was incredibly helpful.
So you use that, right, kind of leverage into Kane County Cougars. Um,
Hmm.
and tell us about your time there. Was it social media? I think it was on-field promotion too, right?
Yeah, it was a little bit of both for sure. But it was mainly the social media stuff. So I actually was an intern after my junior year of college with the Cougars, and Claire Jacoby, who's their director of promotions. She was running their social media as well, and so she essentially handed it over to me entirely. And said like, you can do whatever you want with it, just like check with me for certain things. And then because it went so well, they ended up offering me the full-time position so that I could really flourish and like build their brand in a more focused way. And so yeah, my time at the Cougars was great. The minor league world is a grind for sure. It's a lot of long hours, late nights, but it's also a ton of fun. Like, I have some of the best memories working in sports, working at the Kane County Cougars, creating fun content. Like, for the office night was probably my favorite night that we did there, because I'm a huge Office fan. So getting to create that content was fun. But yeah, working for the Cougars was an incredible first experience because it really just threw me right in. It was like, this is all you, this is your baby, and you can do with it whatever you want, but whatever you do falls back onto you. So it was a lot of responsibility, but it was also good to get that experience.
Well, and it's interesting because now you're doing this kind of the same thing, sounds like, for
Mhm.
Marquee. What does that look like?
Yeah, it's definitely different. So we have a more curated strategy now that we've been following, where our focus is really quality over quantity. Because I think a lot of time in the sports world, there's a ton of just like clipping and posting and getting things out quickly and trying to be first. And sometimes that can lead to content that's not as curated or not as well fed for the feed or for your audience. And so I think when we've been changing our focus to the quality over quantity, which has led to a lot of better engagement for us. But yeah, right now at Marquee, it's spring training, like I said before. So it's a lot of just watching mundane videos of guys playing catch and doing bullpens. And then we kind of bring it all together and find the best way that we can serve this to our audience that they would love.
Now, does any of your content get into the broadcast network stuff, or is it mainly just all social media?
Yeah, sometimes it does. We have a pregame show and a postgame show for every single Cubs game that we broadcast. So a lot of the time, the tweets that we have will get put up during the shows. And then also sometimes in the middle of a broadcast, they'll go up as well.
So if I look at your kind of career, you started interacting with athletes more or less, let's just say freshman year.
Hmm.
And now, kind of get enamored with Illinois baseball players and King County Cougar ones. But now you're on the level of, these all-stars, the
Hmm.
CA and such.
Yeah.
How is that for you? How do you, because are you creating content with them, or are you creating content about them, if that makes sense? Like,
Yeah.
one is engage with them and the other one's like, here's some video, I'm going to create something.
Yeah, we do a little bit of both. So we do a lot of content around them. So just kind of what they're doing at spring training, their statistics and stuff like that. But then we'll also do more like lifestyle, tiny mic style content where we'll like ask them fun questions. At CubsCon, for example, we asked everybody like, who do you think was the best dressed on the blue carpet and whatnot. So yeah, we'll get to do stuff with them, but mostly it's around them. So yeah, I do get a little bit of FaceTime with players.
Okay, that's nice. And are you still doing the grind in terms of having to be at Wrigley during home games, or is it a little bit more balanced now?
Yeah, I would say most of the home games were in the office because we have such a great area around us in Wrigleyville and a ton of opportunities to create content. So yeah, we'll usually be here in office for every single game. That's at home at least, but we do have a lot of flexibility where like we can work remotely if we need to, or like if it's a 8:45 p.m. West Coast game, we can work remotely. So yeah, there's always flexibility. with that, but I would say it is great to like be around Wrigley. It's just a different experience.
Oh, absolutely. Seems like a great thing. Well, let's talk a little bit about social media, right?
Mhm.
2020, uh, started COVID, kind of started TikTok, really the rise of TikTok.
Mhm.
And, before that, there was a little bit of Instagram, a little bit of Facebook. How do you feel like, how was it like kind of growing up into this explosion of content creator, being a content creator, especially in the sports world? Was it hard? Does it continue to be hard? Because my gosh, like if I think about it, it's like there's a million things I could do. And what do I do that makes the most sense?
Yeah, I think that's like you said, that's a big part of it is that the social media world is always developing. Like 10 years ago, a Cubs account might have just tweeted out like Chris Bryant home run when Chris Bryant hit a home run, where now there would be a video attached, maybe another post with a photo afterwards. So yeah, the world is always changing and developing in social. And yeah, sometimes it is hard to keep up with and learning new algorithms, learning new styles of content and adapting to it. But it's also really fun because it breeds a good experimenting ground where you can try out certain things, like on TikTok, especially, is where we try to experiment with content and see how it performs. And then it gives us a good idea of does this work? Does this not work? And then we'll use the analytics to kind of drive what pieces of content or content franchises perform the best. And then we'll kind of go forward doing those things with future games.
Is there planning that goes on? Or do you feel like, walk me through a home game and what you guys
Mhm,
are looking at and, how do you create the content? How many people are involved? Is there a centralized like
mhm.
video place where post produce all that fun stuff?
Yeah, so for a regular home game, let's say it's like a Friday 1:20 game, we'd get in probably like 3 hours early or so. We work very closely with our production team, so we'll have a meeting with them to kind of figure out what they're gonna be doing in their shows and how we can help support and promote them, and then also just get an idea of, like, what could be coming. So, like, sometimes they'll say, "Oh, well, we're gonna do a one-on-one with Shota Imanaga today," and so it's like, "Okay, great. We'll definitely keep our eyes on that, and we'll get that out right away," versus like other things where we could maybe sit on it and wait to release it until game time. So yeah, we don't do a ton of like game day planning necessarily. A lot of it kind of comes as the game goes and as things happen because obviously in sports you can't predict everything. So it's a lot of kind of creating the content as things happen, but we post things to all platforms. So essentially, when we hear the crack of a bat, we get right onto our computers. I think the Big Ten actually uses the same platform. It's called USC or Clip Pro. So we can easily get our clips, send it directly to Twitter, and then we can cut the clips like vertically for Instagram if we want to, or we'll also do something called what we'll call it like a title graphic where it'll say like Dansby Swanson home run with like a photo of the home run. And then on the next slide, it's like the actual home run. But yeah, but most of with like the post producing, we do most of that stuff in Adobe Premiere. And that is I would say for people getting into social media, if you haven't used Premiere before, get into it and try to work with it because it's very well used across the sports world. And I hadn't used it when I was in college, and I would say it was a big learning curve for me at first because video editing is huge now.
Well, speaking of that, what are the other tools that you use? What are the things that students should, young adults should be learning now and be good at?
Hmm. Yeah, I would say overall, like the Adobe suite is great. So like the Photoshop and Premiere, and then Lightroom if you're a photographer would be another one that's really good to use. And just not necessarily like with Photoshop, you don't necessarily have to become a graphic designer and you don't have to learn how to make graphics, but just having like a basic understanding of like how to use the different tools in them, how do you add a photo to something, how could you put a photo in a specific area and whatnot. And then let me think of some other tools that I've
What about
used.
Canva? Would Canva be okay? Or is that like, that's a good basic platform to use?
Yeah, I would say Canva's a great place to start with graphic design. They have a ton of incredible templates to use. When I would say once you're getting into higher level graphic design, most of it's done in Photoshop. And then a lot of the time we have a designer on our social team who helps us do coverage and is also a graphic designer. So he will like send over templates for us that we can use at any point. And so it's not like we have to request something from him specifically every time. He can send us, let's say, like a quote graphic, and then anytime there's like a really good quote, then I could go in and use that. So yeah, it's more getting versed with the different things in Photoshop. But yeah, Canva is also a good tool to like start and get used to.
Now, the thing that I've been kind of talking a lot about with a lot of my guests, especially the students, is and I think I mentioned this to you probably in class too, is my belief is that for the most part, you get your first job or opportunity because of your resume, but almost
Hmm.
everything else comes because of your network. And I don't know if I'm going to assume that's the same for you. And so I want to talk about that, but also I want to talk about the value of networking and how that has helped you over this time.
Hmm. Yeah, so I would say when getting involved in the athletic department, just making connections with the people you're working with, so like the SIDs, the other students, other photographers, literally making connections with everybody is an incredible thing to do because it helps you get so far. Because after I worked for the Kane County Cougars, Claire Jacoby, who I had mentioned before, had also worked with someone who worked here at Marquee, and she had heard from him that they had a social role coming out. And he had asked her, like, do you have anyone you could recommend for this? Because we're gonna get like a ton of applications, but I know like you have good people, so like let me know if you have anybody. And she was like, yes, I do know somebody. Like she's like our social media manager now, and she'd be like great for the role. I reached out to him after that on LinkedIn. I said like, "Hey Kyle, like I know Claire. We both used to work at the Cougars, and I heard you have a role opening up in social media at Marquee. Like I'd love to talk more about it and hear more about the role." So that was really what got my foot in the door here, and then what ended up getting me my role, because had I not heard about it from someone that I knew, I might not have seen it right when it was posted. My application might have just been in the flood with all the other hundreds of them, and I might not have gotten this job.
Yeah, that's it's kind of amazing how that works. Since you're doing social media for Marquee, right, and the Cubs and
Mhm.
stuff, uh, I am assuming you're also trying to develop your own style with your own social media brand, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. Like the videos I've seen with you is, "Hey, come run with me," or something like that. Those
Yeah.
are some of the right. Do you in your job, right? You do all the social media for Marquee.
Mhm.
Do you have a desire or have you also tried to build your own online presence, if that makes sense? And to learn also and to kind of build down the road, like opportunities down the road, if that
Yeah,
makes sense?
so I've done that a little bit. Like you said, I make running videos sometimes as like blogs because I like to run, but I don't know if it's a necessity to be like a content creator yourself in this space. But I thought when I first started doing it, it was almost like an outlet for me to have more like fun with what I was doing, because I was like always baseball, 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 and it was cool to like create content myself. But as the account has developed and grown, I would say it's become more of like a, I'm like a runner, but also I'm working in sports and like getting to highlight that too. And I'd say that's more of like a fun thing for me. But for a lot of creators like Scotty, who's our photographer here, he has like a great social media presence. He'll post on Twitter like his photography and stuff he sees at camp. And I think that is a really good way to get your name out there, and so that people have like a good recognition of you. So I would say like if that's something like in the Twitter space, if people are more into that type of thing, or if you like to create content yourself, like go for it. I don't think there's any reason why you shouldn't do it, because it can only like bring good things to you.
Okay. Now, what do you, if you had to tell me, what has been the most notable experience you've had so far in your career?
Yeah, I'd say the most notable, most memorable opportunity experience that I've had was during the playoffs this year. The Cubs had a home playoff series for the wild card, and they were going to the third game of the series. So they had to win or else they were out of the playoffs. And then if they won, they would advance. So essentially, what was brought to me was like, hey, Maya, like, we have a very limited opportunity for people to go in the clubhouse for like the celebration if the team wins. Like, would you like to do that? And I'm like, yes, 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 absolutely yes. Whatever I can do to do this, yes. And so I ended up going to the field right before the game ended. I was sitting on in the aisle right by the gate, and right when the game ended, I had talked to the security guard before. He kind of let me out, and so I got to run onto the field filming my point of view of the players celebrating, advancing to the NLDS, and then got to go into the clubhouse for the celebration after. So, definitely the most memorable thing I've ever experienced.
That's awesome. Hopefully that won't be your only time.
Hopefully
Where do
not.
you feel where do you feel you wanna go? You could be at the Marquee for quite a while, but,
Mhm.
do you have aspirations of, like, where you would like to go and take your, experience?
Yeah, definitely. I would say with growth, I've already started to get more into the marketing space as well as social media. And so learning to kind of develop our content pillars and kind of just our overall marketing space has been really cool. And I think that's where I want to develop in the future to more like of the oversight and strategy side of things instead of doing it myself. But I do really enjoy creating the content myself too. So I could see myself doing this for a while.
So, could I say, like, hey, if you were the CMO of the Yankees would be, like, the pinnacle of what you've
That
always
yeah,
wanted to do?
that that would probably be the dream. Yes,
With
absolutely.
a World Series during your tenure, that would be
Yes.
pretty cool.
Mhm. Yeah, it's been like 16, 17 years at this point since they've
Yeah.
gotten one. So,
Really? Really?
yeah, 2009 was their last.
My gosh. And I'm
Yeah.
assuming because 'cause you're a baseball person that you can spit, like, stats.
I'm good with I'm very niche with, like, my stats and things that I know. Like, sometimes I'm really good with it, but other times I can be really bad on the spot. So, yeah, I do know a lot, but sometimes when people put me on the spot, I lose.
If somebody wants to learn more about what you do or your history, what's the best way to contact you?
Absolutely, yeah, you can totally reach out to me on LinkedIn, and then I believe my email address is also attached to my LinkedIn, so you can also shoot me an email if you ever wanna chat, hear more about my experience. I'm always happy to talk to people.
Well, and you had mentioned, like, I know you've reached out to me saying, "Hey, there's some social media stuff, like, openings."
Mhm.
Is that happening again this summer or this season?
I'm not entirely sure yet. I believe we may be getting one social intern, but once I get confirmation on that, I'll definitely let you know.
Okay, yeah. Well, and then there is this weird balance because I was talking to another student and he's like, there's some nepotism that goes on a little bit, but and you've kind of
Yeah.
leaned into, hey, my network, right? So
Mhm.
I think that's why it's so important to kind of align your abilities with the network that kind of to
Mhm.
what it sounds like, break through that hundreds of resumes so that kind of comes to the top and be considered. Because
Mhm.
you would agree with me is everybody wants to do sports. Like sports
Mhm.
is fun. I like being an
Yeah.
actor and actress. So getting that job can take some time, and
Mhm.
I'm proud of you that you're where you are. I know you're happy. I know that you're doing exactly what you want to do. And I know it's with the Cubs, but hey, I'm happy for that.
Mhm.
But thank you for your time and I appreciate it. And I always finish the podcast by talking about to you students, you are the quarterback of your career. And so this podcast with my friends is here to help you come up with the best game plan for you to succeed. So thank you everybody and we'll be back next time. Bye Maya.
Thank you so much for your time. This was so fun.